whenever there's a gap, there's a huge opportunity. But I think there's two things that we need to think about and address. The first is what I'd call the art of the long view. So understanding the outcome and trends and what that means for us, as a country, as a state, as an economy, and as a society. But then also some tactical things that we could do right now, just opting in and stepping up. And out of the conference, it was great. They invited, it was the preparatory meeting for the first World Congress on the Creative Economy. That's what it was called. And they pulled together 100 leaders from all over the world, and it was quite amazing to see how everyone participated. It wasn't just one of those conferences that you go to and you sit there. It was very active and very engaging. And at the end, we left with some really tactical next steps. And it was quite amazing.
So what kind of first steps? Just perhaps a couple of examples.
Yeah, fantastic. So we opted in, right? Yeah. We just said, listen, we're happy to lead by example. So we had a 12-point kind of discussion dialogue that we thought we should go deeper in on intellectual property and other things like that, because that's a really key issue. The regulatory environment, as you mentioned. So there's a variety of things there. But the tactical short term between now and the conference, which the conference they were preparing for is going to be held in Bali from the 4th to the 7th of May. So we said, that's great. We could just go and we've all met and we'll see each other again in May, or we do something else. So what we did is we agreed that there were two key things that were needed. One was people to people, and how do we bring people together? And we focused on the entrepreneurship sector and the startup sector. So I'll talk about digital. The second thing that we talked about is how do we look at what are all the disruptors that are at play across all of our sectors, both within Indonesia and Australia. So we committed to do two things. One is to have, again, an exchange around something that's important to both of our cultures, and that's coffee. So what we thought is we'd start, right, with a little coffee tasting. So I can't tell you, I've had about 7 emails in the last 24 hours of people saying we're in. And that we'd have a barista-thon. Right? So again, we'd use the Good Shed and lots of other places to do some really cool things, our co-working spaces, and bring the entrepreneurs together. And there's some really cool things happening, some MOUs that have been signed in the fintech sector that, again, we're going to see evolve very quickly. So that was one. That was bringing people to people together. I'm also really committed and I feel very strongly that you must bring in industry, and so I call that industry integrated entrepreneurship. So what does that mean? A lot of people will insource innovation within an organization. We were talking about the word disruption and the disruption that's happening, and there was a discussion at the end, wasn't there, about is it a negative word or a positive word, and what do we do with it? And they were talking about the film industry and about brand Indonesia. But what does that mean, and what does brand, in our case, what does brand Australia mean? So we do something really cool around teams that can create this disruptors versus transformers event. And what they do is they gamify, so you can't imagine how many people were opting in. So from fintech through to health, through to food. And there's some incredible innovators in Indonesia, but also within Australia. And you mentioned about the flow through the education system, current number of students as well as alumni. And I mean, it was, everyone was really excited about that concept. And so I think those are two things that will unfold between now. So using coffee and food as a people to people. Second thing is using this disruptors versus transformers and the gamification of it to really think broadly about industry structures. And then what we'll do is we'll use our major events program. So again, in January with the tennis, and then everyone that was there, most of them, including the Indonesian government, were hosting some of their best and brightest to go across to South by Southwest. Yeah. Right? So that's in Austin, Texas, middle of March. Then back here for the Grand Prix. So everybody, and that was 100 people, like everybody was hearing it, and they stood up and cheered, didn't they? Like they were all like, this is so cool, let's do it. And now how many people will opt in? We don't know, but the movement's there. So it was, you can tell, I was just so inspired, and leveraging the startup sector and entrepreneurship and really helping to harness all the possibilities for industry's transformation.